Hey guys, we're back to talk this week about family history, one of my favorite topics. Stephen King's Grandma deals with that subject matter quite a bit. This story really creeps me out the first time I read it. I just think it's fun what he does with George and his character and his perspective of the grandma and just that hidden history that the grandma has. She's apparently some kind of witch or has some kind of connection to black magic. Also, there's a bit of a Lovecraftian element here. Hastur's actually supposed to be one of the gods in the Lovecraftian mythos. So there's some he King kind of brings that in, which I think makes it a little bit more fun. And so she has some kind of connection to that. And of course, we don't really know, to some degree, we don't know how much of this is George's imagination. Of course, the end, I think, kind of reveals that because it would appear that Grandma has somehow inhabited inhabited George at the end there. So some interesting connections, I think, to the next text that or one of the other texts that we'll either watch. I think we're watching it in a couple weeks, but the film Hereditary. So lot being done with family history, and it's just interesting to see how family history can affect people's lives and their perspectives. I think, George's mom certainly knows that there's something dark, something strange that's going on with her mother, but nobody in the family really wants to talk about it. Regardless, it has an effect, right? It has an effect on the way people think. And it makes me think. I had asked you guys to share a little bit about your experiences. I have some interesting stories from my family. My dad's mom grew up in a very small town called Sleepy Creek, West Virginia, and the railroad was a big part of their lives. And she told me a story about her family was very religious, and her dad, she had 12 brothers and sisters. So she was a big family, and several of the older brothers worked on the railroad. And I guess her dad had a dream or nightmare one night and kind of woke up the whole house. And he said that he had dreamt that he'd gone into her brother Thurman's room with an axe and started chopping him up with this axe, which, is disturbing enough in and of itself. But what was stranger is, I guess, a couple weeks later, Thurman fell from one of the trains he was working on. He fell from the train and it cut his legs off and killed him. So kind of a weird story. I remember hearing that as a younger child and kind of thinking like, whoa, like what's going on there? So that was kind of an interesting that bit of gossip that kind of influenced our family. And then probably the most famous one from my family, believe it or not, is that my mother's father, so my granddad, he was from Middlesboro, Kentucky, and his sister was killed by Colonel Sanders, who was drinking and driving. And I guess he had this big white Cadillac that he was famous for driving, and he was a pretty reckless driver. And I think back then, I mean, there weren't drinking and driving laws, and he liked to drink the Kentucky whiskey. And they were crossing the street, and somehow he came barreling through town and lost control of his car and accidentally killed her. So that's always been a story that's lingered around my family. And then my granddad, who was a little bit of a character, had some interactions with him later on, and I don't want to get into that too much, but it got to be a little crazy. And so Colonel Sanders has definitely cast a shadow over my family. And so that's a little bit of, and that's kind of a running joke in our family about a lot of people don't believe us when we tell them because, he didn't end up getting any trouble because he was obviously very wealthy and had connections. And I think he gave some money to the family. but he nowadays he would have that would have been a huge scandal, right? So, and no, he didn't give us the secret recipe to Kentucky Fried Chicken. So maybe if we'd have had that, it would have really benefited my family. So true story though, not making that one up. As strange as it sounds. So, but family history can have a impact on us, positive or negative. It can really shape the way that we see the world, the way that we expect things to play out in our lives, for good or ill. So sometimes it can be challenging things. Sometimes it can be for the good, but it definitely has an impact. It's something that we have to wrestle with. And so that's what I was really wanting you to get out of this. Also remember, King is a master at building tension. I mean, this story does a great job of building tension. It's got the very weird elements. George's description of Grandma is she's almost otherworldly. She's almost like monstrous in the way that he describes her. So it's just a much different take than what we're used to expecting when we think about grandparents or people from that age. So a lot of fun. I think King does a really nice job with it and building the tension and creating that internal conflict for George, and really works, I think, because George is the narrator and because of his age, but he does a really nice job with it. So I hope you enjoyed that. Hope you'll be thinking about your family histories, and I can't wait to read what you guys come up with for this week. So have a great rest of your week. See you soon.